Welcome everybody to the session on Mezuzahs. We can discuss on tefillin. Also, it's not really directly relevant to you. But in Mitzvah, when you get married, so it is. I don't know. Are you guys married or not married?
Most are
Some?
single.
Most are single. Okay, Mitzvah. This will be listening to this about tefillin. It will be a special bracha to get married. Because really, when the husband has tefillin, it actually brings shmira to the entire household, not just to the husband, not just to the man who's wearing it. It brings shmira to the entire house. Interesting to point out, we see the idea of shmira by tefillin just like by mezuzah. Anybody knows what this stands for? The back of the mezuzah. What does it say over here? Very good. Shem Midas is a show, which means that Hashem protects the doorpost of the Jewish people, right? On tefillin, we have the same thing. We have the shin, right? And then I didn't bring the whole set of tefillin, but on the back of the dalet, on the back of the kesher, you have a dalet, and on the hand tefillin, you have a little yud. So it also have shin, dalet, yud. So tefillin also is the idea of shmir. We have constantly people coming to us with stories, bringing us tefillin and mezuzahs, and we find that it's something which had to be corrected, or there was an non-kosher tefillin, and a kosher mezuzah, and when we corrected. Very often we hear amazing stories. Not always do we hear the stories, and not everybody tells us the story. Sometimes it's private. But we hear a lot of stories, almost on a weekly basis, of absolute miracles, which will blow your mind. I can tell you a story which happened, which is recent. The person that the story happened to publicized it, so it could be they even heard the story. His name is Sean Greenberg from Detroit. His shver is Shmatkin. He lives as a shliach over there in Detroit. And he sent us his mezuzahs. He had 5 mezuzahs in his house. He's a young married guy. He's been married for less than 3, like a year and a half. And the mezuzahs coming to us. And one of my guys who check, he comes over to me and says, "You recognize the mezuzah?" So I tell him, yes, I recognize it. It's actually the writing of this Ukrainian sofer. I don't know if you heard the story, but there was a guy that was writing, someone from Ukraine who was living in Israel, Fishi Chabad. He ended up going off the way, became totally not religious, and he was writing, and he's writing a lot of mezuzah and tefillin. Thank you. He's producing tremendous quantities of tefillin and mezuzahs. And Rabbi Brian, the Bezdin, a year ago, put out a whole thing that people should be aware of it and put pictures of it. People should know. So I recognize the writing. You guys heard about this, or is this new?
Yeah.
You heard about it. Some of you did, some of you didn't. There's a whole scandal. This guy actually reached out to me a few years ago to buy from him, and it was a very attractive price because it was quite cheap. And I asked him, "Who are you?" He said, "Sofer. I live next to Hadich." So I said, "How do I know that you're reliable? Like, just because you're writing mezuzahs which look nice doesn't mean it's kosher. Doesn't mean that you're good. Doesn't mean you're Yiras Shomayim." He said, "Speak to the shluchim in the area." I called them up, and they all said they have no idea. They cannot take a chrais on this guy. They don't vouch for him. He lives in the middle of nowhere. He lives in a city where there's no yidden over there. He lives like 45 minutes away from Hadich. And they wouldn't take a chrais. So I stayed away, Baruch Hashem. A year or two later, it came out this whole thing. So I was very happy that I was careful. So what happens is I look at this guy's writing, and I see that the mezuzahs are from this sofer, from this Ukrainian sofer, totally non-kosher.
Every person has their own style.
Very distinct writing, yes. Every sofer has his writing. So if you recognize that person's writing, then you can know who wrote the mezuzah. I won't always know who wrote it, but if I know that particular writing, then I can tell. Just for example, let's say you have a friend who they have a very specific kind of, when they write English or Hebrew, whatever it is, you could tell, I know that's my friend's writing, right? In your class. I remember as a kid, I would be able to recognize this boy had this kind of writing, because it's very, everybody has their handwriting, their style. See the mezuzahs, and I straight away call him up. I said, "Rabbi Greenberg," I said, "Are you aware that your mezuzahs are from this and this scribe?" He's like, "I don't believe it." He was shocked. His mezuzahs are from this scribe, from the Ukrainian scribe. I told him, from the Ukrainian sefer, and he straight away he knew what I was talking about. He obviously heard about this whole thing from the year before. I said, "Is everything okay?" And he was quiet, and he says, "Actually not." I didn't ask him anything. He said, "Do me a favor." He said, "Could you mail to me overnight, UPS, the best mezuzahs you have?" So I said, "Okay." And that's what I did. 2 weeks later, he calls me up. He said, "You should just know, my wife had a baby 5 months ago." This story happened like 2 or 3 months ago. So we're talking about he had a baby, 8 months ago. And my wife is not healing. The wound is not getting better, right? She had a baby, and she's going through tremendous pain. You should all Mitzvah have that experience of having a baby, but not without the pain, without the pain. I mean, obviously. without having basically, usually, you have a baby, and then after a week or two, it gets better, right? This woman, 5 months later, she's going through hell and literally not bearable. And she went to doctors and she went to this, and they sent her to some faraway hospital. They said, go to this place and, you'll go through a surgery and it's going to help. But it's going to be very painful. The painful part came true, but the helping didn't help. They said the surgery was successful and everything's fine, but but she's still in pain. And she's on very, very high painkillers and she's in miserable pain and they don't know what to do. They went to the oil, asked for bracha. And he tells me, he's like, my wife is in crazy pain and nothing's helping. And they don't know what to do. And he says, you call me 3 days or a few days after she had the surgery, going to a checkup. And you said, is everything okay? And I was like, whoa. And he's like thinking to himself, maybe something going on with the mezuzahs. He said the next day, after the mezuzahs, the new ones you sent, the new mezuzahs, kosher mezuzahs, my wife started feeling better. The pain just literally evaporated. Now I have one of his mezuzahs right here in my pocket. Maybe I shouldn't carry it on me because it's not a school for shmira, but this is this Ukrainian sofer's mezuzah. So he left it in my office. I have 5 of them in my office if anybody wants. Yeah, so I have these mezuzahs, and you go look. You could pass it around. It's a very nice mezuzah. I don't even know if the parchment is kosher. Maybe he did it on his own. I have no idea. The writing is beautiful, but the mezuzah is not kosher. What does it show? That when it comes to Yiddishkeit, when it comes to Torah mitzvahs, very often, especially when it comes to mezuzahs and tefillin, it's about what's behind. You don't always see. It's about the intention, the kavanah. If he's a from a yid, if he's Yiras Shomayim, the Yiras Shomayim is very important. You can have a mezuzah which looks beautiful, but if the sofer didn't do one little thing correct, the entire thing is not kosher. For example, so over here the guy was just totally not reliable. He was
what you could tell from his handwriting?
It's a very specific kind of writing. It's just the style,
So it's not the kosher one?
not kosher.
The way mezuzahs and stuff works is that it all goes by the person. There isn't it's not.
Well, there's 2 parts. There's a lot of parts.
Obviously,
The main thing is the sofer. The first thing is when somebody wants to sell me mezuzahs, right? I sell mezuzahs and tefillin and teres. So I have sofer call me up. Could you buy from me? So who are you? Right? This guy called me up also. I said, who are you? I don't just buy from anybody. I have to really reference and verify. Speak to his friends. Speak to the rabbi. Speak to people who know him to verify. Is he a Yiras Shomayim? Does he go to the mikveh every day? Does he daven with a minyan every day? Does he have kriyas in B'Torah every day? Is he some that people know that he's a fine person? His personality. You want to know about this guy, like a shidduch, right? You look into it's like a shidduch. Now, if someone says, I have a good shidduch, okay, I'll date him. Okay, the picture looks good, so I'm going to get married to him because of the picture. You might get stuck with a rotten apple because it's not about the facade. That's just a facade. Obviously, there's details, the mezuzah, obviously there's halacha. Chassidus to say it's a facade because there's a lot of every single detail in the mezuzah has profound meaning. It says that Rabbi Kiva was derish tili halachas, and every single tag, every little crown. If you look at the mezuzah, there's many little crowns. You have Shatnez Get, Shin, Ayin, Tes, Nun, Zayin, Gimel, Tzadik. Those letters have 3 crowns. It says it's like swords to chop the bad spirits. And they have Bedek Chayo, Beis Dal Kuf Ches Yud Hey. It's an abbreviation. Bedek Chayo, Beis Dal Kuf Ches Yud Hey. They have 1 crown. Now, if it's missing the Bedek Chayo tagim, it's kosher. But it's like when you go on you go out with someone and they're missing like they're missing whatever, some stuff. Maybe they're missing some eyebrows, missing some fingernails, they're missing whatever. You want them to be intact. You want them to be everything, right? Now, let's say the Shatnez Gets crowns. Those, it's b'diavad if it misses them. There was an opinion that says it's not even kosher. But the Shatnez Gets, we have 3 crowns on those letters. According to halacha, if it doesn't have those crowns, there is an opinion in halacha that says it's not kosher. The Alter Rebbe says it's kosher, but it's not lechatchila kosher. So if you're missing crowns on certain letters, it compromises on the kashrus. It's kosher b'diavad. You want it to be corrected. If a mezuzah is missing a letter, the mezuzah has to be buried. It's not kosher. It cannot even be corrected because it has to be in order. It says v'hayu advar me'ila, and the chacham lanot.
I don't know if it was recently, I heard of this, but quite a few letters from around the check. So to the cipher like explains the process of how he does the writing. And he said they didn't have a mikveh in the city or something, so he would go to the mikveh.
He missed out on Hashem's names and he went to the mikveh down. Famous story, very famous story, yeah.
Wait,
It's actually, I think, yeah. So the Torah written out of order. Mezuzah and tefillin has to be written in order. So the story here, the guy was trying to be reliable by going to the mikveh at the end, right? So he missed Hashem's names, and at the end, he went to the mikveh and he filled in all Hashem's name. Now we know that that's not considered, it's not in order. It says v'hayu advar me'ilu v'hayu kahav yasan yiyu. Has to be in the way that the Torah prescribes. The Torah says it.
That's not something that you could know.
Not something, it's very hard to know, yeah. So how do they know? I think the Rebbe said to check it, and they went to Rabbi Heller, and Rabbi Heller didn't, said to find out who the sofer was or something, and I think if I'm not mistaken, if I'm not mixing up stories, Rabbi Heller basically, because the Rebbe said they should check the mezuzahs, Rabbi Heller said, go to Rabbi Vosner. They asked Rabbi Vosner called the sofer over, and the sofer said that he goes to the mikveh at the end, and they verified the things. You have to recall all his mezuzahs, can you imagine? Now over here, that was every sofer is different, right? Some sofer know who they sold to, not everybody. So this sofer doesn't care who he's selling to. He's still trying to sell more. He's a big crook. He's a big crook, this guy. There's videos of him saying, "Oh, right now I'm in some other country and I'm selling over here. No one knows about me."
Sellers and comments, let's say, they keep that word.
Usually they know, but it's not always 100%. You know, not always. Anyway, okay. So what are we saying? So the first thing is a mezuzah and tefillin and a secretary. What's the most important part? The sofer. Who's the sofer? Right? Like you see over here, you have a very beautiful mezuzah, but is it beautiful? It might look beautiful, but it's really not very beautiful because it's not protecting the person. It's not bringing him the brachas, and he's not yotze the mitzvah mezuzah, and therefore you saw over here what happened, that the guys had tzaros. Now let me ask you a question. A bad mezuzah like this, right? The problematic and non-kosher, is that causing the problem to happen?
No, it's a helmet there.
Oh, very good. Yeah, you see, you guys came prepared already. So she's answered the question. That's what I was looking for. A problematic mezuzah is not causing the bad thing to happen. Rather, it's like a helmet of a soldier in battle. Now, when did the Rebbe say this? Let me ask you if you know this part. When did the Rebbe explain this? No. It was in the school. Where? Malot. Very good. There was a terrorist attack in Israel, going back, I don't know how many, 45 years ago, maybe many years ago, in the north somewhere in Malot. And there was a lot of kids. There was a bunch of kids. I don't know how many. So there was 12 kids that got killed. You made it up. Okay, those unfortunately kids that got killed. And the Rebbe came out, the Rebbe spoke by Fabrega and said that they should check the mezuzahs of the school. And the place where it happened, they should check the mezuzahs. The Rebbe said there's a problem with the mezuzahs, and they lo and behold, they checked. And what happened was there was the same exact amount of mezuzahs that were non-kosher matched up to the amount of kids that got killed. Now, some people were very amazed, but some people were very angry. So they were amazed because, wow, the Rebbe has Ruach HaKodesh, and it made sense, and they fixed the problem, and now things are going to work out. And the people were very upset. Why? How could the Rebbe say that the bad mezuzah caused the problem? Sounds crazy. The pasuk mezuzah. So now we're saying that caused the problem to happen. How could that be? So the Rebbe by the Fabreng, and the next week I believe came out and clarified. And the Rebbe said like this: the Rebbe said that a problematic mezuzah does not cause a problem. He says it's like a helmet. A kosher mezuzah is like wearing a helmet, right? We see today, unfortunately, too much of what's going on in Israel. Hashem should help that the soldiers should be safe and protected, and Yidden should be safe. They're going in the front lines, soldiers, right? And they're putting their lives in risk. They wear, but they wear protective gear. They wear all kinds of uniform things and a helmet mainly to protect the head. Now, if a soldier is wearing a faulty helmet, does that mean that he's going to get killed? No. What does it mean? It means that the risk is greater. There's a bigger risk of something happening, but it doesn't mean that he's going to get killed. The Rebbe says that this is just an example. The Rebbe says that in Yiddishkeit, right, when Hashem says to do a mitzvah, it's going to protect. Mezuzah and tefillah is going to protect you. The Rebbe says that this protection, is the greatest protection that a Yid could ever ask and ever want in his life. And therefore, the Rebbe says that we need it and we must make sure to have this shield. And the Rebbe says that a mezuzah does not just protect for physical things, like bullets. The Rebbe says a mezuzah protects all the winds that are going around the world. The Rebbe says there's a lot of winds outside. And the Rebbe says that we have winds in our hearts as well, right? We have negative emotions. And we have all kinds of taivas of whims and desires that's not always 100% holy. And the Rebbe says that when we have a kosher mezuzah on our door, on all our doors, which require a mezuzah, so what does it do? It brings the Eibush into our house, and it connects us to the Eibush there, and it elevates us, that we should be able to have a chance to be able to feel correct and feel holy and feel straight, feel in a healthy way, right? The tefillin we put on our head and on our heart. We want that our feelings should be godly, and our feelings should be healthy and balanced and normal, and that our mind should be in sync with the Eibush, what the Eibush wants. Does it mean that if someone puts on film that he's going to be 100% a holy Jew? Not necessarily. But now he has a chance of getting it right. Like the Maisa with just B'derech Agav, there was a story going back. I remember hearing the Fabregen where the Rebbe was screaming. There was a Yid by the name of Shach living in Eretz Yisrael. He was a big respected rabbi, and he was speaking against the Rebbe, against every time the Rebbe came out with a mitzvah, he was fighting and going against it. And the Rebbe spoke, and the Rebbe had a lot of pain. Like, what does he have against what I'm doing? Why is he so antagonistic? And the Rebbe said it must be that it's tefillin not kosher. And the Rebbe said it's not possible. The Rebbe, it's not possible it's tefillin not kosher. Again, the Rebbe wasn't coming just to scream against him. The Rebbe was saying it just The Rebbe saw there was something ruchnistic wrong over here, that was missing in his connection to the Eibishter. The Rebbe said that he has a problem with that tefillin. And they checked the tefillin and they found there was a psul there. And they fixed it, obviously.
When did they check? I heard that he didn't want the answer.
I'm not sure all the timeline and exactly when and what, but I heard that they checked it and they found the psul. And then afterwards they asked the Rebbe, and also, look, he's still doing all this stuff. The Rebbe said, and now that he has kasher tefillin, it's possible for him to have shiva alev hamayach. It's possible for him that his mind and heart should be, like we said before, should be able to be elevated and in sync with what the Eibishter wants, right? Right now there's a vessel, there's a fitting vessel to be able to be to have shiva alev hamayach. Shiva alev hamayach means your heart and mind should be subservient to the Eibishter. But before it wasn't even possible. The Rebbe says now he has bechira, right? We have bechira, we have free choice. You could have the best mezuzah in the world, and we're going to discuss a little bit about placement. I don't know how much time we have, but it's also very important to know where to put a mezuzah up, and that's something which they asked that we should go through. So we prepared over here what is it called, a slideshow. You can have the best mezuzah in the world, the most beautiful ksav, the biggest Yiras Shomayim, check, perfect, beautiful, everything good, and the right side of the door, and you have the best tefillin. Your husband got the best tefillin in mezuzah. However, we have free choice, right? It protects and it brings brachas. But if a person decides that he's going to go and do an avera, so then the Eibishter has to help that he has to help himself sometimes. Not everything is the Eibishter's fault. Not everything is the Eibishter's fault. It's like the Rebbe would say, we have to say to him that the people in Eretz Yisrael should make the right decisions. Because what should we do? Because have the Eibishter do a mitzvah and have in mind that they should make the Rebbe said say to him that Bibi and this one and that one should make the right choice, right? Because of bechira. Okay. Any questions? Yeah.
Are you talking to the law, like a must or?
That's a good question. So what she's asking is, okay, so we discussed before about the Shatnas Getz crowns, that every letter Shin, Ayin, Tesnon, Zayin, Gimel, Tzadik has 3 crowns, Bedachai has 1. There's a certain letter in the Aleph base, which is the letter Lamed, which doesn't have not any of those crowns, but has something else called the Tagi Lamed, which is like there's 2 thorns, so to say, like 2 lines on top of the Lamed. One on the right side and one on the left side. Who knows in Yiddishkeit what does the left represent? The left represents Gvura, and the right side represents Chsadim. Okay? The one time in the Tefillah Mezuzahs, it actually brings in Halach also about the Ches. But the one time that it brings all the way back, the Levush, one of the Rishonim, he writes, based on Kabbalah, that the letter Lamed, when the right side has the crown or the line, which is taller than the left one, if you want to pass it around, you'll see that he actually was pretty good about it, I think. Again, in the practical stuff, the guy was great. Just he wasn't kosher. So, Simon?
Yeah.
This is I have in we put it in a special. This is the Ukrainian sofer. I said a whole story. Oh, you heard this, sir? We're very careful to make sure it doesn't get mixed in. And unfortunately, we've seen this too many by people's houses. You want to hear another story, by the way? You like stories? So a relative of this person actually came to me right before Pesach. No one heard the story really yet. And the story didn't finish. We're in the middle of the story. The relative of this person called me up. He said, I'm flying of the person who owned the mezuzahs. He calls me up. He's like, by the way, I would like to know if I could send you a WhatsApp of a few of my mezuzahs because I have a chash that maybe some of my mezuzahs are from the Ukrainian sofer. And I was like, interesting that you're saying that. Like, why would you think? He says, because I happen to be a cousin of this guy, of this, not the sofer, the person. And I got them from the same place. I'm not going to say where. And I'd like to know, maybe I might, because I'm dealing with something very serious now. I'd like to know if it's from him. I said, sure. So he sent me a WhatsApp of 5 mezuzahs, and lo and behold, they were from the same sofer. He comes to my office, and he's like, I'm on the way flying now back. He's also a shliach, a young married shliach. He's like, he got married 2 years ago. He's like, I'm flying home for Pesach. This is literally like 3-4 days before Pesach. He comes to my office at 7 o'clock. He's like, I have a flight in another 2-3 hours. I need some new mezuzahs. So I said, sure. There was a shliach standing in my office. Noach Kasovsky was standing right there. He heard the story. So he's an aide to the story. And this guy tells me, the shliach, he says, I'm going to share with you what's going on. I got married 2 years ago, and I had 4 miscarriages since I got married. I did not have a child yet. I have 4 miscarriages since I got married. And he says, now it explains what's going on. He has these mezuzahs. The story happened, a month and a half? We're holding now end of Sivan, and end of year, right? So this happened right before Pesach. So, yeah, like a month and a half ago. 6 weeks ago.
What led this to become?
7 weeks ago.
Someone discovered it.
This story?
Yeah.
He was Mefars in the story. Oh, you're saying the scribe, the sefer?
Right, yeah.
What happened was, he was a little suspicious. He was living in the middle of nowhere. And there was a sefer, a very nice young sefer, I know from Eretz Yisrael, who made a whole, how do you say, it? Like, he started investigating. And he sent guys to him and who were friendly with him and to ask him and get information out of him. And he made a whole thing to find out that he basically had, and the Rabbanim were in touch with him and basically came out that this guy was mamish a scandal. He's married to a non-Jew who lives in the middle of nowhere. No Yidden, from a Yid doesn't live in the middle of the city where there's no other Yidden there. You have to, you want a place with this Jewish infrastructure. He's living 40 minutes away. They said that he was going on a bus shop. He's married to a non-Jew. I spoke to my brother. My brother said that he spoke to the sofer. The guy doesn't, his wife, there's no kedushin over there. There's no Rav married them off. And there's no proof that she's Jewish. Because he's not Jewish, married to a guy, and yeah.
So what were you saying about the Lamed?
Oh, Lamed. So the Lamed, the right side is Chesed, left is Gvura. In the Mezuzah, when the Lamed, the right side is taller than the left side, it brings down in the person's life Chesadim. So it's something which is very important that you want to make sure that your Mezuzahs, besides for being from Yiras Shomayim, which is the main thing, that the ksaf should be halachadik, right? And it should be checked for well. Something which is very often overlooked, which obviously she seems to show that, what's your name? I forgot. Chaya Mezuzah, right? So Chaya is mentioning that the Tagi Lamed is very important, and I can tell you stories that I know happened. There's a guy that actually I videoed him say his story. I can say his name, Zusha Khan. He lives in Five Towns, I think, or in Queens. Zusha Khan. He comes here every day. You know what it is? Zusha. He wrote the basic Mikdash of Babel in English. He's a writer, a very talented writer. So it happened a bunch of years ago. He came to check his mezuzahs and he asked me, is everything okay with my mezuzahs? I said, I think everything was fine. My Magia told me that they were muhudr. He said, could I ask the Magia again just to find out? He went into my Magia's room. My Magia said everything was fine, but there was some Tagi Lameds which we had to correct. He said, I don't believe it. He said, that's what caused, he's like, I had a deal, I was waiting to come through, something in his parnasa, and he said, today it came through. So I knew there's something that you fixed in my mezuzah. So the Lamed must have been, he said, it must have been the Lameds that you fixed. Now this is a story about parnasa. There's also a very famous story which was put, I think, Gem video, the guy, his name is Feldman, from Flatbush. Also, he was very sick, and he had blood transfusion. This happened before Gimel Tammuz. And there's a video, you see how his wife goes by the Rebbe, and asks the Rebbe for bracha, and the Rebbe says, make sure to check your husband's tefillin. And I believe that he wasn't Chabad then. He became Chabad later. And his children, they live in Karnais. Duvi Feldman, he works in the Merkez Suite 302. He actually bought a Sefer Torah for me, for his father, when his father passed away a few years ago. And he has another fascinating story with Sudak with an Aleph, another whole Igor story, that's something here. If you want to see just a little side note, a little advertisement to one of my meisters, I have a website, it's called rebbestory.org. Please go and check out the stories there. There's a very amazing stories, fascinating Rebbe stories. No, not about mezuzahs. I really should do that as well, but it's not about. It's about Rebbe stories after Gimel Tammuz, mainly non-Chabad people sharing amazing stories of the oil of writing the Rebbe, Igros Kodesh, whatever it is, stories that Rebbe. And there's a story of someone when they get to this Feldman as well, to his Tehran, but separate thing. Okay, so back to this guy. So he was very sick. He was in hospital, blood transfusions, and his wife goes by the Rebbe, and the Rebbe says, "Your husband should check his film." Fine. So she told her husband, like the Rebbe said, check his film. He was in hospital. She calls him up and he says, I'm asking him, but don't tell the sofer why you're checking the film. Fine. That night, the Rebbe told Leibel Grona to find out what was wrong with the film. Not if it was checked, what was wrong. So she calls her husband, or she called the sofer and said, what's with the film? He said, I didn't check it yet. So he said, could you please, let me know when can I pick up the film? Come to me tomorrow at 12 o'clock, we'll be running. Fine. The next day she calls the sofer. What's with the tefillin? He said everything was 100% fine. Besides, for the word levavchem, the tagi lamed on the word levavchem, which means your heart, the right side was shorter than the left side, which means that the balance of chesed and gvura wasn't good. You wanted the chesed to override the kindness, the brightness of the Abish's kindness should be shining, not the gvura. That was it. What was the question? Look in the lamed. Every lamed in the mezuzah or in tefillin or sefer Torah, the right side, the crown, there's two little lines. The left one is a little, it's like very subtle, like a thorn, like a little like part of the goof of the vav of the lamed. The right side is like a taller line. And if sometimes the right side is missing, sometimes the right side is shorter than the left side, and that's not good. All across the board, besides for Ksav Sfardi. In Ksav Sfardi, Merkzia, according to the Svardish Makaris, they don't have the Tagi Lamed. It's a Pikabala, but they don't have a Tagi Lamed. No, only in Arizal and Beis Yosef and in Alter Rebbe. What?
The short one.
The right side. No, the right is Chesed. If we want the right to be taller than the left. You had a health problem. You had a health problem. It could affect anything. It could affect Sean. And mezuzah brings spiritual and physical and psychological and any kind of blessings that a person needs in his life. If you have a kosher muhuda mezuzah, it brings brachas and shmirah to the person. In his house, away from his house. Very important that your mezuzahs are correct and written by Yiras Shomayim and done and correct, and on the right side of the door. Okay, which we're going to discuss a little soon. Sorry? That's a few extra crowns. It's Alpi Kabbalah. There's a lot of ISIS. Oh, why is it taller? Why is the dal taller and bigger in Echad? It's a Kabbalistic thing. The ayin what is it? Of Shema. Very good. Ayin of Shema is bigger as well. Ayin and dal make up the word aid. There's different reasons about it, but yeah, it's on purpose. Over here as well. You see, this was also.
How does somebody, let's say somebody starts to write, they want to learn.
Yeah.
How does someone decide, oh, I'm gonna be more like this, or I'm gonna write more like that, or
You saying the quality of his writing?
either, the quality, I'm guessing
Everybody has that skill. Some people are more talented, some people are not as talented. So it
Right.
depends on the skill.
but some of these things, it seems like it's a choice. Are you?
For example, what? For example,
With different subs, like some.
which kind of ksav? It's
Or
usually your custom, or that's usually your custom. Chabad Sefer could decide if he wants to resell out to Rebbe, but I'm saying a Sefer that's out there, if he's a Sephardi background, he's going to probably write Sephardi, but it's not. You could have one Sefer who knows how to write them all. I could write a Rizal, I could write out to Rebbe, I could write Beis Yosef, and probably could do Sephardi if it's not that hard. But it's not Sephardi ksav though. It's different. Beis Yosef is not Sephardi ksav. It's different. Oh, that's a good question. Okay, so she's asking, what does it have on the back of the mezuzah? Kuzu b'muchsas kuzu. So now, if you look at the front of the mezuzah, what is those letters corresponding to? What is it corresponding to? What are these words over here? Yud Kei Vav Kei, Elokeinu, and then Hashem again, right? So if you look, the Chaf, we basically want that the letters should correspond. So this is based Kabbalistic also. There's it brings in the Ramah in Hilchas Mezuzah that you put the kuzu b'muchsas kuzu. The Chaf. So I'm explaining. The Yud, what's the next letter after Yud? Chaf. What's the next letter after Hey? Vav. What's the next letter after the Vav? Zayin. See that? Elokeinu, B, Aleph is Beis. You didn't. Yud Kei Vav Kei, Chav Vav Zayin Vav. And then Elokeinu, b'muchsas. It's the same thing. Kuzu is again Yud Kei Vav Kei. So basically, Kabbalistically, why exactly one letter off? I don't know what the Kabbalistic thing is. It brings down that it's for pregnancy, different malachim, for different things. It's in different malachim, different hamshachas. It's like a school for more for shmira for different things. So that's why we do it upside down. If you see the mezuzah is written this way, and the kuzu is upside down because you want it to be corresponding exactly on those letters. It should be that the chaf of the should be against the yud if it's upside down. Sfaradim do not do this. At least used to be a lot of Sfaradim didn't. Today already someone doing it, and the reason is because according to the Rambam, who knows who the Rambam is? You guys know Ram Sfaradi, right? The Rebbe would always say the Rambam, Rav Moshe ben Maimon HaSfaradi. The Rebbe was very, we do Rambam every day, right? Rambam, Sefer Mitzvahs. The Rebbe wanted us to kach and limit Rambam. The Rambam was a Sfaradi, Pesach, right? Halacha goes according to a few Rishonim. You have the Rambam, you have the Rif, the Rosh. So the Rambam the holds that the mezuzah is not for school of. We don't do it for the mitzvah, for the shmirah. The mezuzah is for the mitzvah. Hashem give us a mezuzah. You do it for that. Don't put on any other kabbalistic things. Don't do any shmirah, any kasgulas. None of that. So this is more of schoolis. But you're doing it for the shmirah, like the malachim of pregnancy, like we said before. The Ramah, but the Rambam but the Sfaradim go according to the Rambam mainly, and therefore they don't do the kuzu mosas kuzu, which is interesting. Today a lot of them do it, but there's like a little bit more intermingling with the different minhagim and different things. Not a problem. Yeah, not a problem. Yeah, not a problem. I wouldn't say Alter Rebbe is high quality than Arizal. You can have a beautiful Arizal, you can have a beautiful Alter Rebbe. You can also have a sefer who doesn't know how to write Alter Rebbe. The Alter Rebbe Ksav is a little bit. It's more expensive. Again, not necessarily. You can have a very expensive Arizal. It depends on the quality. So you're asking me what's the Alter Rebbe Ksav? What's it all about? Alter Rebbe Ksav is a combination. Because the Rabbeim encouraged it, and the Alter Rebbe introduced it, and the Alter Rebbe wrote it, and the Alter Rebbe was writing a ksav, which is before Mashiach comes, a ksav which unites several opinions in halacha. It's a combination of the Beis Yosef and the Arizal and other different things in there. Has a lot of kavanah, but it's also there's a lot in the practical seer of the ice, the form of the way the ice is. There's a lot of kabbalistic and nigla combinations with the Alter Rebbe. It's an Arizal based ksav, but it has also the Beis Yosef included inside. I could show you, but we're getting a little sidetracked because I think that we want to discuss Kriyas Mezuzah also. But basically, it's a ksav which the Alter Rebbe introduced at a very specific time of history, like before Mashiach comes. And he said that now is the time with Hamshach of this ksav comes into the world, and now is the time, because before Mashiach comes, where we need to have this ksav to be able to usher in Mashiach, and therefore now is the time to have this unity amongst the different opinions in halacha, that we have this kind of ksav. Yeah, correct. Most of the time. Some, not always, but it's much more difficult to write. There's much less sofer that know how to do it. It's more difficult to write, and therefore, because there's less sofer that know how to do it nicely, so they charge more for it. But the truth is, in Arizal, the very high quality Arizal, if you go to Bar Park or Williamsburg, they know how to charge for mitzvahs more than we do. They could charge you $500, $600 for mezuzah. Alter mezuzah in Crown Heights, I mean, I sell mezuzahs, $200, $300, $400 for a Rolls Royce mezuzah. In Williamsburg and Borough Park, $300-$400. The regular sofer from Borough Park and Williamsburg that writes mezuzahs will be charging those prices. $75. Today, how many years ago was that? So today the pricing went up. Today the mezuzah, Mahuta mezuzah is not going to be $70. It's going to probably cost you $150, $180, $200. But it all depends. Pricing went up a lot in the past 2-3 years, but it depends on. It's all not about the numbers of dollars and cents. It's about the sofer, the quality of the writing, the quality of the agah, hagalamitz, all the different details. Sometimes we walk into a store. Okay, what's the mezuzah? How much? Okay, 100, 200. Give me the one for 100. It could be one place $100 is going to be one thing. Another place, it doesn't have a SKU number. When you go to Target and you say, I want to have that vacuum cleaner it's going to cost, $155.73.2. And you're going to take the same SKU number and you're going to check in Best Buy and you're going to check in. You have the same exact item. Over here it costs this amount, over here it's $3 more, over here it's $10 less. So you can get a discount because you know that you're getting this item for a cheaper price. Mezuzah and tefillin, it doesn't work like that. You're relying on the guy giving it to you. You're either the sofer or on the vendor, whoever's selling it. You're relying on his standards. Now, what is his standards? How do you know what does he be careful about? There are so many intricate details. You're literally relying on him. They say an interesting point. They say, why when you go onto an airplane, you never find out the credentials of the pilot?
What?
When you fly on a plane, when you go with El Al, you go with American Airlines flying to Florida to Israel. You don't go and say, could I please see? When you go to a doctor, you make sure the doctor is certified, right? Or you get your friends to tell you that they use him and he was good. But you always want to see the doctor, like, where did he train? If someone's going, God forbid, for brain surgery, they're not going to just go to the guy who's the cheapest, right? They're going to go and see, is this guy good? Does he have a good track record? Where did he train? Did he go to the best study at the best university? Does he really know what he's doing? Did he get trained from the best doctors? When you go into a flight, you don't even bother checking who the pilot is. Who knows the reason? It's a very simple answer. Exactly. Because you know that the pilot is going to make sure that he knows what he's doing because he's flying with you. So you don't bother asking, because if the pilot's going, he probably knows what he's doing, right?
Question.
But when you get a mezuzah, that guy selling the mezuzah, he's not going with you. Unfortunately, if you would be a Yiras Shomayim, if the vendor would be a Yiras Shomayim, he would make sure that mezuzah was checked and double checked and really kosher. Again, mistakes can happen to anybody. But the vendor, if he really believes in the Eibishter, right? It's like, hey, I don't care. It's not me. I'm giving the mezuzah to some fry guy. I don't care. There was a guy in Bar Park he sells mezuzahs, which are totally not kosher, like these little printed things like mashuach, not kosher mezuzahs. Why? Because he was selling to Reform or to somebody who's not from. And it makes no difference, right? To them, it's like, what's the difference? The guy's not from or whatever. Who cares? The point is that if you believe in the Eibishter, there's a website. Why are they writing on kosher mezuzahs? Because they can make money. What do you mean? Why? Because they can make money. There's something called Yetzirah. A Yetzirah, the guy doesn't believe in the Eibishter so much, and he writes a mezuzah. The Pri Megadim says that the Yiras Shomayim of a sofer has to be greater than that of the Yiras Shomayim of a shochet. You know why? So my father's a shochet and I'm a sofer. I don't know if I'm such a Yiras Shomayim like my father, but I'm trying. Why does a sofer think greater than a shochet? Who could tell me why? Anybody can tell me why? It's a logical calculation.
No,
Okay, but why does a sofer think more than a shochet?
you start to know who the shaykhah is.
No.
The details, no?
It is affecting the person, because it's less accountability, practically.
It affects my work.
Humans and animals.
No, not exactly. I'll tell you. It could be what you're saying is all true, but that's not what the people got. No, my father has no one overseeing him. My father goes to Schritte on his own. He does what he wants. Say if he does. The answer is like this: a sheichet that shechs a cow. Now we're talking about going back. I mean, today it's not really the sheikh himself that owns the animal. He's working for a company. But let's say 100 years ago, 200 years ago in the shtetl, he had a cow. Now that cow was worth 1,000 ruble. We're talking about this is a huge amount of money. If he shechs the cow and by mistake he made a mistake, and the cow now is not kosher, he's losing a lot of money. Okay, someone's going to go and eat that cow, right? Some nice family, a woman's going to come to the store, buy the steak for tonight's supper, eat the cow. Family's going to eat the cow. What's going to happen tomorrow? They're going to go back to the store to buy again meat for supper. So they're going to be nichshel once. They're going to eat the thing, which is not kosher, chas v'shalom. But then tomorrow, or a week later, or a month later, let's say they bought a big amount of, and they froze it. I mean, they didn't have freezers those days. But let's say they're going to have it for the next 2 or 3 days. After they finish with that stuff, they're going to go and buy again kosher meat. And mezuzah and tefillin is different. Why? If that sofer didn't want to cover his tracks, right? He was covering his tracks. He didn't want to expose that he made a mistake and it's going to cost him. He spent now. I used to write today. I don't really have so much time to write. I wrote my son's tefillin a few years ago, but I'm very busy, Baruch Hashem, with a lot of things. I don't have time to write. But I know how difficult it is to write a pair of tefillin and a mezuzah. It takes many hours. Writing a mezuzah like this could take me 4-5 hours. A pair of tefillin we have over here could take 15 hours to write this tefillin. It's like 5 mezuzahs. Okay, this is the shayad. This is the shayad. There's 4 parashas on one.
This way as well, please.
Yeah,
Thank you.
we have 4 parashas over here. You see, the third one. This is kosher. This is a brand. I just took it out of my office. It's a brand new, beautiful pair of parashas. Al Tereb Eksav. Shema. You see the Shema, the little one. The third parasha is Shema.
Yes, sir.
You see that? So now this takes a long time to write. Now, if I make a mistake over here, it happened many times, and it's very, very aggravating. If I make a mistake over here, that's a lot. Well, half the film. This is only like the shayat. Now the sharot. This is you have 4 parashas on one piece of cloth.
You have to
Start again. Sometimes, if you didn't write Hashem's name yet, and you made a mistake, and you didn't write Hashem's name, you could scrape it out till Hashem's name, till wherever you made a mistake, as long as there's no Hashem's name anywhere in between. Because if once you have Hashem's name, you cannot scrape out Hashem's name. Now, Shel Rosh has 4 lines and it has 4 separate pieces of cloth. You see that? And it has to be in order. So if you wrote Kaddish, you wrote Shema, and then you made a mistake. Whoops, I made a mistake. The whole thing is Gnizah.
Wait, including the.
Not the no. This is separate. This is separate. So let's say you made a mistake in Vayim Shemaya. So the Kaddish, Vayim and Shema is Gnizah. That's a lot of work. It's very, very painful. Now, if the guy's not a Yiras Shomayim, what's he going to do? Fix it up. Go weiter. So you understand what we're talking about over there? And it's a very serious thing. So you're relying that the sofer is Yiras Shomayim. When you say sofer, why is it Yiras Shomayim? Because hey, you're talking about this guy's putting hours and hours. He's sweating away writing. But for 2-3 days, he's writing. Right? He spent hours and hours and hours, and he made a little mistake, and he missed a letter, or he made a psul which is not fixable, and he wasn't God fearing. He was like, yeah, so it wasn't kosher. Big deal. So it's not real. The whole thing anyway. Whatever. Right? So now what he's going to do is people are going to be wearing for their whole life. You never know because it could look beautiful. Any sofer I'm going to check it, beautiful like this. This is the mezuzah, the Ukrainian sofer. I would never know if not for recognizing. Now the story that I said before, I forgot to say one detail of the story. This is written by the Ukrainian sofer. He left in my office because he doesn't need them. This mezuzah, the sofer that wrote this mezuzah, the guy that had these mezuzahs, he told me that he was going to give it to the sofer Detroit. There's a friend of mine, his name is Levi Kagan. He's a sofer, and Levi told me, he's like, it's a mazal that I wasn't available. He was going to give it to the guy in Detroit to check the mezuzahs, and Levi told him, I'm not available, send it to Kvanitz. That's why he sent it to me. Levi Kagan told me he doesn't know this guy's ksav. And if he would have sent to Levi Kagan, he would have never known to detect. Now he knows. I say, he's like, Levi's like, could you please send me that stuff straight away so I should know what it is? He had no idea. We could get, yeah. So I said another story. It looks like you missed it, but right before Pesach, a cousin of this customer, I thought you didn't hear the story. The guy, his wife was struggling, was having a lot of pain after having a baby for months and months. Got new mezuzahs, the pain disappeared. She had a surgery, she had painkillers, nothing else. So a cousin of this guy, he had these mezuzahs in his house, and his wife had 4 miscarriages since getting married. Now, let me just tell you, unfortunately, there's a lot of people have these mezuzahs up.
Is he green guy?
So Rabbi Broin's putting out a new letter, Mr. Shem, in another few days to arouse the entire. You'll see a letter coming out in the next few days. I've been pushing him to do it again because on the bottom of my to say that you must make a big kalkera and make sure everybody knows about it, like talk about it more. Like there are people who have these mezuzahs and they're suffering tremendously without knowing, and no one's going to know. If this ksav is not out there enough, right? Okay, so I happen to know because I saw it, in I remember and I have a good eye for it, but a lot of people, whatever they saw, they didn't see it, they don't remember, right? So it has to be in people's faces, it has to be all over. This ksav is not kosher.
Is this not being circulated mostly in Chabad or?
I don't know. He wrote Wasar. He's ksav. It's a big problem. Yeah. Okay, let's speak about something positive. Positive is that when your mezuzahs are in the right place, it brings brachas. How do you know? There's a line that goes the right side is not always the right side. Okay, the right side is not always the right side. No, it's not always the way the door opens. Very commonly it is. Very often it's the right. Is that the way you push the door? Something called hekatzir. You push, it goes on the right, but not always like that. So let's go through. Anybody have any questions about what we spoke about until now? Everything's okay. Yeah. Recommend a sofer? I'm biased. What's your name? What's your name? Who? So you married? You have go, Mazel Tov. You have mezuzahs already? Okay, good. So you don't need mezuzahs. About checking mezuzahs? If you want to check your mezuzahs, my sofer, I'm very careful about tagalamas and about other things which are very important. We know that we're very careful about halacha. We try. I could tell you my guy, and I can tell you that my guys, I try to make sure they're very thorough. Yeah. We're on top of Lynn's jewelry, Montgomery. So I can tell you about myself, my guys, we try to be thorough. I'm sure the other guys were very good also. I'm sure. We test them. We do not rely on them until we, for a couple of years, go through and make sure that we spot check them and check over them for years. I have guys who for years, I still don't trust them. And I just send them off because they're not good. Oh, that's right. Your husband is getting it. He didn't get it yet, but you bought it. Sorry?
More involved in this, but they're from, but I think that their Yiras Shomayim has like holes in it, they're not like.
So you want to go to someone who you trust as Yiras Shomayim? It's not so simple, right?
Where do you draw the line in Yiras Shomayim? It's like.
So I said before, you can't measure someone's heart. You don't know what's going on, but you could see things. There are certain flags to see. Okay, this guy I don't want to use. Yeah, and then how do you know if you want to rely on someone?
He's not your
Right.
time in public, then he's definitely not in private.
Correct. If you see someone who, besides for just doing the right things that Shulchan Aruch says, right, that he davens with, you go see he davens in a minyan every day, 3 times a day. Does he daven in the minyan? He goes to the mikveh in the morning. Does he Chassidus? All my Alter Rebbe Sefer, I check to see do the Chassidus in the mornings. Every single one of them. I always ask them. I ask them, what are you learning? I'll call them. What do you learn this morning? Chassidus. Alter Rebbe Sefer, all of them. I'm careful because Alter Rebbe Sefer, I'm writing for Anash, for us. So I make sure do you learn Chassidus in the morning. And who knows them? Like people know them. Is he an erlich? Is he an able person, or is he like a screaming, loud, bad guy? If he's not a pleasant, good person, then it makes a difference how holy he is. That he's run, right? Is he working on himself? Biddas tevus. So when you see that there's a person who is upright, he's honest, he has good midas, he has a wife, and he has children, and he goes to mikveh, and he davens in the minyan, and he has shiurim every day, and he learns Chassidus in the morning. So then again, more than that, how the Eibush has to help. You know what I'm saying? So you see, you can see. No. They don't have to be married, but I think all my tefillin say from our married happens to be, but they don't have to be married. Not according to halacha. There is a certain thing that says that tefillin there's an inyan for them to be married, but it's not a chiyuv. Okay, we should do the. Any more questions?
Yeah.
Yeah. What time is it?
Last year, the check on the actually this year. And someone, or I don't know if they checked it, they came back and they said that for all of them, just one of them had cracks in the person with my legs. And I don't.
You don't understand what that means?
It doesn't feel like it's my legs.
So there's two things. There's the standard of the writing, which means that when they say mohoder with these cracks, it means that the writing style is written in a mohodic way. However, from age, there was a little deterioration. So if they could fix the deterioration, so we're putting it back to the way it was, and now it's mohoder the way it's intended to be, and it's good. So this, it depends how big. I mean, relying on that sofer that the crack wasn't such a severe crack that some post can pass it and it's only the other kosher. If it's a minor cracks, it could be 100% fine if it's corrected.
You suggested.
I don't know what was there. It depends how serious. If the sofer said that there was a little tiny cracks and he fixed it, now it's fine. You can assume it's mohoder now. The only thing is, it sounds like maybe the ink is getting a little bit deteriorated from age, and you might want to check it again after 6 months just to make sure. If the mezuzah is weak, begashmius, sometimes it might be kedai to upgrade. because you don't want to get stuck that all of a sudden you didn't realize in the mezuzah was a problem, that things fell off and you were missing the shmira, you didn't have the mitzvah. You want it to be strong, not because,
It's also a problem if you want to stop on the city of post. I don't know.
the Chassidus we tried, it says you don't want to be, it says, Ma'ile b'kodesh ve'emeridin. So mezuzah, which was on the door, which is mechuyev in deraisa, you don't want to put the front door, usually, not always. Front door, if it's going into a small little area, so then it's not a deraisa. Has to be going into a room which is 6 by 6 feet. So that's an interesting point to what you're saying. The front door is not always a deraisa, but usually it is if you're going into the big space. You don't want to take that mezuzah and put it onto a closet. That's the point. So the Chassidus, we try to keep a track of where it came from, but it's not ma'akiv. If you didn't and you forgot, you can put mezuzahs anywhere. It's not a problem. Yeah.
Question, you say cracks,
The
I'm about cracks
sofer-
in the letter or the letter?
It's not a letter, not the parchment.
Oh, she said her.
The ink in the parchment, so that's a problem.
She said.
She probably means that probably there's no cracks in the parchment.
I think the question, I didn't.
In the parchment, so if it's on the letters, then that has to be changed. If the parchment on the side is a little brittle, so you could just. It's different.
It's still a part of the conversation, and still on my side.
So then she might want to consider getting a better mezuzah. Very often, things which are not explainable in medical, I've seen myself very often. When you fix the mezuzah or you change the mezuzah, things just magically happen. I know a story I can tell you from today to tomorrow stories. People had all kinds of issues, whether it was getting a shidduch, whether it was health, whether it was whatever it was. They did something in the direction of mezuzahs and tefillin, or in your case, it would be mezuzahs, and they saw things happen good in their life. The Rebbe spoke about this all the time. It's not me. This is the Torah, and the Rebbe was the one who kind of zoomed up this thing. Like you see literally the result of the mezuzah straight away. It says Mashiach's going to come. You're going to see the result of a mitzvah straight away. The Rebbe, to me, it looks like the Rebbe took this idea of Mashiach in the area of mezuzah and kind of amplified it. That we see the result today so amazing. So many stories of the guy had a problem, and the Rebbe says it must be mezuzah has a problem, or it must be that the placement was not correct. They fixed it. I understand, but you see the result straight away. If I tell you, okay, you have a headache. Okay, so you have a headache. Okay, so Mastama, you didn't keep Shabbos. You don't see that. The Rebbe was able to do that. The Rebbe did that. Tell people, okay, you have a problem with this, keep kashrus. You don't see well, have dollar candles. So there's different Rebbe. But so many times when the Rebbe told people you have a problem with whatever, mezuzah is a problem. And it must be that there's a problem still. I heard this from, there's a lot of stories. One thing I want to say, just an interesting thing before you say, I don't forget. Somebody told me that he was having migraine headaches. Now, it's not the first story. I had this recently, but I heard this years ago from Mrs. Nemni. You know Mrs. Nemni? Yeah. So she told me this. I was sitting at a table. We could ask her if it's true, unless I'm going over bottle. She told me this 18 years ago. I got married around 18 years ago. And when I was engaged, sitting by the table with my Lei Garari, Tanya, you know Lei Garari? So she's my aunt. And I was sitting by the meal, and Nemni's with their Mordechai and his wife. And I remember her telling me, it stuck in my head. This is before I was a sofer, I think. Yeah. Before I actually got trained, tested. I wrote a Megillah when I was a bacher, but I got and she said that she had migraine headaches, and it was Kodesh that I was said to carry a mezuzah with her, and she carries her mezuzah with her, and she stopped having migraine headaches. She stopped having migraine headaches. 2 months, yes, 2 months ago. It's something you see in the Yiras Shomayim. 2 months ago, somebody in 770 came over to me and told me that he has migraine headaches, and he got a letter in the Yiras Shomayim to carry a mezuzah. He's like, I don't know, but he said he got a letter. He's like, it's 30 days a month, and I didn't do it. He's like, I didn't. I said, why are you waiting? I said, I could tell you, I know stories that. He says, I don't know. I said, come to my office now and get a mezuzah. He did it, and I saw him a few days later. He said, Baruch Hashem, I haven't had headaches since then. I saw him again recently. He said, I had a headaches one day, and I checked, and I didn't have a mezuzah in my pocket. He took the mezuzah, and the headaches went away. I'll tell you another story. I see crazy stuff. There was a guy came to me.
We just had a doula speak.
Yeah.
And she was whatever. Somebody showed her a letter from the Rebbe to bring a
mezuzah to the birthing room. Yeah. There was a guy that came to my office a few months ago, and he said that he's literally going crazy. He cannot sleep. No, you should never have this. But he was saying that it's terrible, terrible, terrible Yisurim, pain. It's called insomnia, I think, right? Where you cannot sleep. He said it's already like 3 or 4 days. He hasn't slept a minute. When you want to sleep, you just can't fall asleep. Not explainable. He came to my office. I remember Rabbi Yitzchok was standing in my office. He came, he was standing there. And we told him, get a mezuzah. I told him, get a mezuzah. Carry a mezuzah, put it under your pillow. I don't know. No. If it's double wrapped, you double wrap it, it's not a problem. I'm putting it into the bathroom. So listen to the story. I didn't see him for a month or two. I didn't see him for a month or two. You hear this? Guys, listen to this. I was in the store. I was buying a hat. I was standing in Borsalino a few weeks ago. And this guy, I don't want to say his name. He said, I just want to be fast. He was married for 2 years. He came over to me in the story. He's like, well, remember that story? Remember I came to you a month or two ago? He said, I had the mezuzah. He's like, that night I was able to sleep for 3 or 4 hours. The next night, 4 or 5 hours. Within 3 or 4 days, the whole thing went away. He's like, the mezuzah saved me. He's like, you have no idea. He's like, I was becoming suicidal. The pain of not sleeping for 3 or 4 nights, he said, is you literally feel like you're going to die. You can't survive. He said, it was suicide. He said, he had like thoughts like, he's like, I can't do this anymore. And he said, the mezuzah saved his life. Crazy story. So I didn't do anything. I just suggested there's something which the Rebbe speaks about these things. Mezuzah protects. Not only when you have it in the place where the mitzvah
Also,
is, nightmares. Also, the Rebbe speaks about mezuzahs for nightmares also. The Rebbe told him when he was there. You were in Yiras or before Gimel? Yeah, before Gimel Tammuz.
It was before Gimel.
Before Gimel Tammuz. Wow.
Something were
Wow. So let's see, it's the first time.
all like it was just him. Ben does the bum thing. And we all do that.
I had stories. People tell me that we checked the mezuzah and we just corrected the baby, the kid's bedroom. The kid was having nightmares and the mezuzah was fixed, and things get figured itself out. Yeah, it's a very real thing. When it comes to this, it's not exactly the thing. It's about having a kosher mezuzah. Al Terebe Basar it's already a hiddur, already beautifying, going up in level. I can't tell someone that has to have Al Terebe over Arizal. The Rebbe did encourage it, but it's a little bit more expensive, so you can't tell someone you have to get Al Terebe. Plus, per mezuzah. Exactly, it's not shade.
How are we gonna be so rich?
Sorry for a lot of the word. Sorry for a lot of the word. You pricing it based on whatever there's a certain market value.
But he can say, hey, I'm like.
The safer can charge whatever you want. You don't have to use them.
Also, Yiras Shomayim to overprice.
To overprice is not Yiras Shomayim, but I think that in the sofer world, I think in general people are underpricing, not overpricing. The amount of work that goes in, a guy's spending 4 or 5 hours on a mezuzah and he's charging $300, $400. You go to a lawyer, they charge you $600 for an hour. So why is it overpricing? There's no such thing as overpricing, in my opinion. Yeah, if someone who's writing and he has a push and he's spending time and he's concentrating and he writes a beautiful mezuzah, took him 3, 4, 5 hours, and he's charging $300-$400. You don't have to spend that kind of money if you don't want, but it's not overpricing.
Better, how much is there could be another sofer, spend 4 or 5, even 6 hours mezuzah and price less.
Fine, so everybody's entitled to you charge what you need to live. If you need to live, you have a family of 10 kids and you need to be making $100 an hour. So you charge what you need to be making to live. Just because someone else charges $50 an hour, it's not, everybody has what they need. Everybody charges whatever they need. Okay. It depends where you go. We charge $12.
Oh, why
And
not?
we try to do a thorough job. If it went up, we're doing that. We can charge $12 for a year or two already. My scribes, my servant may charge you more, so you want. Okay.